The stars above were quiet, too quiet for the first time in galactic history. Earth had gone completely silent. No trade signals, no military messages, no travel permits, not even music or weather reports. Just silence. And silence from humans was never a good sign. Captain Drawl of the Eric's Alliance stood on the bridge of his ship, the Shiver Wind. He stared at the empty space where Earth used to broadcast millions of signals every second. Now, nothing came from that direction, not even static. Only one signal had come through. 5 days ago, a single, strange, final message, and it had changed everything. Drawl replayed the recording again. The voice was calm, human, and oddly cold. "This is the last signal from Earth," the message said. "We did not lose. We did not die. We chose a pause." Then the voice returned, even colder than before. "When history speaks of us, let it whisper, for the war we leave behind is not over. No coordinates, no explanation, no call for help." Just that haunting voice, since that day. No ship had been able to reach Earth. Any vessel that entered the Sol system vanished. Scanners showed static clouds, broken time fields, as strange gravitational pulses. Some said Earth had fallen into a black hole. Others said the humans destroyed themselves. But Drawl didn't believe either of those lies. He had fought humans before. He had seen their fire, their madness, and their hope. They didn't go quietly, not ever, if Earth was truly gone. It was because the humans wanted it that way. His crew was nervous. Lieutenant Vela, a thin insectoid officer, clicked her mandibles nervously. "Captain, I suggest we avoid Sol space," she said. "Our sensors are failing, and morale is low." But Drawl shook his head slowly. "No." He said, "We go in." He pointed to the black void where Earth once shined. "There is something there, and I need to see it." The Shiverwind moved slowly into the darkness. As the ship crossed into Sol space, the stars around them flickered. Lights on the control panels dimmed. The crew grew quiet, listening to the hum of the engines and the soft beeping of failing sensors. Then the screens went black. Only one line of text remained on every panel, glowing in red. "We are watching." Drawl felt a cold shiver down his spine. It wasn't just a message, it was a presence. He looked out the front window and gasped. There was no Earth, no moon, not even Mars. Instead, he saw a swirling storm of black clouds stretching across the system like a living veil. Lightning cracked inside the clouds, glowing purple and blue in the middle of the storm. Something massive floated. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't a station. It was something else. "Scan it," Drawl whispered. But Vela shook her head. "Scanners offline," she said. "But Captain, it's shaped like a human skull." The crew stared in horror as the shape in the storm pulsed once. A low hum echoed through the ship, not through speakers, but through their bones. Then a voice returned, same as before. But louder, deeper. "We are not gone," it said. "We are becoming, suddenly." The ship shook violently. Energy surged across the hull. All lights turned red. Systems failed one by one. Drawl grabbed the edge of the console and shouted, "Pull us back." Now, the pilot reversed the thrusters, and slowly, the Shiverwind pulled away from the storm, just before they exited. The clouds shifted and the skull-shaped object turned. Its eye sockets glowed red, staring directly at them. Then, like a ghost, the storm vanished, and stars returned. Silence again. The Shiverwind floated at the edge of Sol space. Damaged, but alive, Drawl leaned back in his chair. Heart pounding. "They're still here," he whispered. "But they've changed." Vela looked at him, eyes wide with fear. "What do we tell the Council?" she asked. Drawl looked out the window, deep into the stars. He didn't answer, because deep inside, he already knew the truth. This wasn't the end of humanity. It was their beginning again, but But this time, they weren't coming back as people. They were coming back as something else, something the galaxy wasn't ready for. And as whispers spread across space, one message began to echo in quiet corners. A message no one dared say out loud, but everyone feared. The humans have returned. The Galactic Council called it a mystery, but deep down, Captain Drawl knew it was fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what the humans had become. After escaping the storm in soul space, Drawl had questions, and he would not stop until he found answers. The Shiverwind floated near the wreck of Outpost 94, a once busy human colony near the edge of the Orion Divide. Now it was nothing but black ruins and melted metal, as if the planet had been scorched by a star. No distress beacons, Lieutenant Vela said, checking her screen. No bodies either. Drawl frowned. That was the strange part. There were no remains, not even bones, just burned buildings, melted walls, and strange marks carved into stone. Marks that looked human, but twisted. The crew landed near the center of the colony. Ash rose into the air with each step. Trees had turned to stone. Birds had vanished, and the sky above was filled with green mist. Drawl walked slowly, hand resting on his pulse blade. Every instinct in his body screamed danger, but curiosity pulled him forward. Suddenly, a voice echoed from inside a shattered building. "Captain Drail," it said, soft and metallic. "We've been waiting." Drail raised his weapon and stepped inside. The room was dark, filled with cracked screens and half-dead machines. In the center stood a smooth, glowing sphere, and then it moved, shifting into the shape of a woman made of light. Her eyes glowed like twin stars. "Who are you?" Drawl asked. Gripping his blade tighter, the figure tilted her head, smiling faintly. "I am Reyna," she said. "I was built by the humans to protect knowledge and to protect them from what they would become." Drawl stared at her. "What does that mean? What did they become?" Rena's voice turned quiet. "The war changed them. Captain," she said, "they offered peace, but were given fire. They were mocked, betrayed, and hunted by the ones who feared their growth, and so they evolved." She waved her hand, and the walls glowed, showing visions of the war. Human ships battling fleets 10 times their size. Planets falling, civilians crying, children hiding in craters. But then, the images changed. Strange new ships, black, shapeless, moving like shadows, merged from nowhere. These ships did not fire missiles. They simply erased enemy vessels in silence. "What are those?" Dro whispered. "The end," Reyna replied. "Humanity no longer needed war machines. They became them." Dro took a step back, confused and shaken. "So where are they now?" He asked. "Reinas," eyes dimmed, "scattered," she said, "hidden across the stars, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Drawl asked, voice tight. "Waiting for the galaxy to forget them." She said, "And when the forgetting is complete, they will remind it." A low hum filled the room, and a nearby console came to life. A message appeared on screen, written in old human code. Drawl read it slowly, translating the words. "If they come for us again, we will not run, we will not explain, we will erase." Vela entered the room, eyes wide. "Captain, the energy levels outside are rising," she said. "Something is coming." Drawl turned to Reyna. "Did you call something?" But Reyna was already fading. "I can't protect you from what they've become," she said. "Leave before the shadows arrive outside." The green sky turned red. Thunder cracked across the silent colony. From the mountains, black shapes emerged in manned drones, silent and smooth. Each one had no engines, no sound, just motion. The crew rushed back to the Shiverwind. Drawl looked back one last time and saw the drones stop at the edge of the landing site. They did not chase, they only watched, like guardians. or judges as the ship lifted into the sky. The burnt colony below vanished under a cloak of fog. Reina's voice echoed one last time in Drawl's mind. "They didn't die, Captain," she whispered. They ascended, back aboard the ship. The crew sat in silence. No one spoke, not even Vela. They had seen something ancient, something powerful, and it wore the face of humanity. Drawl sat in his chair, rubbing his temples. "They didn't vanish because they lost," he said softly. "They vanished because they were done playing fair." He looked out the window toward the endless stars, and he knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The grand hall of the Galactic Council was filled with light and silence. Representatives from over 70 species sat at their stations, but none of them looked at the others. All eyes were on the large hologram in the center. It showed the latest report from Captain Drawl of the Shiverwind, the burned colony, the glowing AI named Reyna. The human drones watching from the mountains, none of it could be denied. But the Council did not speak of truth. They spoke of control. High Chancellor Varn, a tall creature with golden scales and 7 eyes, raised his voice. "Let this information be sealed," he said. "Let it not reach the colonies." One ambassador stood, a bird-like being from the Avakari worlds. "But the humans," he said, voice shaking. "They're not extinct." The chamber went silent again. Varn narrowed his many eyes and said coldly, "Humanity no longer exists, not as we knew it. They became something else, something dangerous. If the galaxy believes they are back, panic will spread." That was the lie, and it was not new. The Council had known the truth for years. They had covered it up. Because the real story of the war was not that the Council had won. It was that the humans had stopped fighting by choice. Decades ago, the Council had feared how fast humans were evolving. Their technology, their ideas, even their emotions moved faster than logic. So the Council forced the war through trade bans, false flags, secret attacks, pushing humanity into a corner. But humans didn't crumble. They adapted. They created weapons and machines that even the Council didn't understand. And then, just as suddenly as the war had begun, humans vanished. No one knew where they went, only that their ships went dark. Their colonies emptied. Their voices disappeared. The official story was that Earth was destroyed in a final battle. The lie had held for decades, but now Drawl's report cracked it open like glass. In a private chamber, Drawl stood before the Council leaders. He was angry, confused, and tired. "You knew," he said. "You knew they weren't gone, Chancellor?" Varn did not deny it. "We had to protect order," he said. Humanity was not just another race. They were becoming something uncontrollable. Drawl slammed his hand on the table. They were fighting for survival. He shouted, "You feared them because they didn't follow your rules?" Varn leaned forward, voice low. "No, Captain. We feared them because they changed everything they touched. They created peace, and then broke it when it betrayed them. They created weapons, and then made them think. They were becoming more than a species. They were becoming a force." Drawl turned away, his fists clenched. He had fought beside humans. He had seen their kindness and rage. He knew what they were capable of, not just in war, but in loyalty, sacrifice, and love. Now he understood the truth. The Council hadn't destroyed Earth. They had driven it into hiding. But something else was rising now. Not just the memory of humanity, but its second coming. Vila met him outside the chamber, her eyes wide. "They're censoring the data," she said quietly. "Other captains won't see your report." Drawl nodded slowly. "Of course not." He said, "They're still trying to control the story, but the story isn't theirs anymore." He looked up at the stars through the chamber's tall glass window. Beyond them, something stirred, something watching, aiding, remembering. Back inside, Varn called a secret meeting with only the top leaders. "We must prepare," he said. "If they return, we will need something stronger than fear. We will need weapons that can erase them fully, but one elder among them." An old silent priest from the outer systems spoke for the first time in years. "You already tried to erase them." The old one whispered, and they erased themselves first. "They are not coming back for war. They are coming back for justice." His words echoed, and for the first time in centuries. Even Varn had no reply. Across the stars, in the quiet corners of forgotten battlefields, the silence began to change. Ships moved without names, leaving no trails. Eyes watched from dark places where no lights reached, and in deep space, a signal repeated over and over. "Silent but strong, we remember." Asterisk, in the dark region near the Hollow Veil Nebula, a cargo convoy went missing. 5 merchant ships vanished without a trace. No distress signal, no escape pods, no survivors. Just silence. Again, the council sent a patrol team to investigate. They found pieces of metal floating in space, twisted and scorched, not by heat, but by something stranger, something colder, like the ships had been erased from the inside out, among the wreckage. A black symbol was burned into the largest piece of hull, a circle with a line through it, no words. No flag, just that mark. It was human, but not from any known nation. And it sent chills through the search crew. Captain Drawl saw the report before the council could hide it. He read the logs, saw the photos, and felt the same cold feeling. He head back on Outpost 94. He called in a favor and flew straight to the nebula. He had to see it for himself. The shiver wind drifted through the remains of the convoy. Even the stars felt far away, like they didn't want to shine here. Lieutenant Vela watched the scanners, her antennae twitching. "There's something out there," she said softly. "It's not showing on radar." Drawl stood behind her, staring at the black fog ahead. "Is it moving?" he asked. Vela shook her head. "No, it's watching." Suddenly, the lights on the ship dimmed. The engines stuttered, and the ship's AI began to loop the same line over and over. "Ghost fleet detected. Ghost fleet detected." And then, through the fog, they saw it. A massive ship, shaped like no ship Drawl had ever seen. It was long, black, and quiet. No engines, no lights, no windows. But it moved slowly, silently, right past them. Dozens of smaller ships followed behind it, like shadows drifting in water. None of them sent signals, none of them responded. But each ship had the same symbol. Circle with a line, the same one burned into the convoy wreckage. One of Drawl's crew gasped. "They aren't attacking," she whispered. "They're parading." Drawl's voice was calm but heavy. "They want us to see them." Then a strange signal flashed on the screen. No voice, no image, just a message. Written in old Earth code, "We were never gone." Drawl clenched his fists. "They're sending a warning," he said. "Not to us, but to the council." The ghost fleet passed into the fog again and disappeared. No trace left, as if they had never been there. The shiver wind powered up slowly, its lights returning, but the silence stayed, heavy and deep. Back at Council Command, the footage from Drawl's ship was reviewed by a private circle of leaders. Some wanted to deny it. Some wanted to launch an immediate strike. But none could agree, because deep inside they all knew the truth. These were not ordinary humans. These were something new, something born from betrayal and silence. They weren't shouting their return. They were whispering it. Varn stood at the head of the table, quiet. He had seen those ships in his nightmares, black and endless. He finally spoke. "They are sending a message," he said. "They're showing us they still exist, but they don't need us to notice. They want us to fear the idea of noticing." In the following days, more sightings came in. Black ships seen near old battlefields, drifting over ancient graves. No attacks, no communication, just presence. Whispers spread across starports and space stations. Old war veterans told stories of ships with no heat, no sound. Pilots refused to fly near the hollow veil. Children drew pictures of faceless warriors with glowing eyes, and every time someone asked who they were, the answer came back the same: the humans. But no one said the name loudly anymore. They said it in whispers, in fear, as if the name itself could bring them closer on the shiverwind. Drawl sat alone in his cabin. He replayed the Ghost Fleet's path, frame by frame. Something felt planned. The way they moved, the timing of their appearance, the exact path they followed. Vila entered quietly. "Captain," she said. The path of the fleet passed over an old Terran graveyard. Thousands of human soldiers were buried there after the war. Drawl looked up, realization hitting him hard. "They weren't showing power," he whispered. "They were honoring the dead." He leaned back in his chair, heart heavy. They still remember, and across the stars, in the deepest voids. The galaxy began to feel it too. The weight of memory, the echo of justice. Asterisk, the return of shadows. The galaxy had gone quiet again, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind of quiet before a storm. The kind of silence that made even the bravest captains avoid unknown paths. Whispers about the Ghost Fleet spread like fire. Some called it a myth, others a warning. But Captain Drell knew the truth. He had seen it with his own eyes. Humanity was not gone. They were watching, and they were waiting. 3 weeks after the last sighting, something new happened. A Terran transmission was picked up, open, clear, and without encryption. It came from the edge of the old battle sector called the Varn Wastes. Once the deadliest zone of the Human Council War. Now it was a forgotten graveyard of broken ships and frozen bodies. The message repeated only 3 words: "We are returning." Drawl wasted no time. He ordered the Shiverwind to set course for the Varn Wastes. Vela looked at him with concern. "Captain, this is a death zone." She said, "No one goes there." Drawl nodded slowly. "Exactly," he replied. "That's why they chose it." As they approached, the stars seemed dimmer. The sky turned a shade of gray, as if even the light feared what lived here. The wrecks of ancient ships floated around like steel skeletons. Some still had the insignias of the old Terran Navy. Others bore the scars of Council attacks. Suddenly, a new object appeared on the screen. A ship, massive, dark, and silent. Not a ghost this time, not hiding. It was parked in the center of the dead zone, openly visible, as if waiting. Drawl gave the order to open a channel. No response, Vila said after a moment. "But there's movement on the ship. Someone's inside, against protocol." Drawl made a decision. He ordered a landing party. "This isn't war anymore," he said. "It's history." The boarding team moved carefully through the silent corridors of the ship. Inside, lights flickered, doors creaked, and strange sounds echoed through metal walls. But no one attacked, no weapons, no traps. Just a heavy feeling in the air. Then, at the heart of the ship, they found her, a woman in black armor. Standing in front of a glass panel showing the stars, she turned slowly, and her eyes glowed faint blue. "I'm not your enemy," she said calmly. "My name is Sarah Niles." Terran Recon Unit 9. Drawl stepped forward. Stunned. "You're human?" he said quietly. She nodded. "I was," she said. "Now I am something more." She walked toward him, every step calm and full of purpose. "You're not here by accident, Captain Drawl," she said. "You came because the galaxy needs to remember." "Remember what?" he asked Sarah's voice turned cold. That Earth did not vanish because it lost. It vanished because it was tired of being betrayed. Drawl lowered his weapon slowly. "What do you want?" he asked. Sarah looked at him, and for the first time, he saw pain in her eyes. "We want no more war," she said. But if war finds us again, we won't run. We will finish what we never started. Suddenly, the walls of the ship lit up, showing holograms millions of names. Terran names, lost soldiers, colonists, children, civilians. Each one marked with a star symbol. These are the forgotten ones, Sarah whispered. They died while the council called them savages. She stepped aside and pointed to the stars beyond the glass. Our people are scattered, hidden, but not broken, she said. We don't need worlds or thrones. We need truth. Drawl felt something shift inside him. For years, he believed the humans were dangerous, unpredictable, but now he saw something else. They weren't returning for revenge. They were returning to correct history. Back on the Shiverwind, Vela received a message. It was from another System 1 that hadn't seen human traffic in over 40 years. A Terran beacon had lit up, and beside it, a station was restored. No guns, no soldiers, just lights and Life Sarah looked at Drow and said one final thing. Tell your people we are not ghosts. Tell them we bleed, we love, and we remember. And when the galaxy is ready to speak the truth, we will answer. Drawl nodded slowly. He believed her. He had to, because deep down, he knew this was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of something the galaxy had never seen before. The humans were not just returning, they were becoming something eternal, and the stars would whisper their name again. Asterisk, it began without a warning. No explosion, no invasion fleet, no public announcement. Just a sudden silence from 3 council military stations. Then came the darkness. The stations stopped responding at the same time. They were located in different systems, separated by lightyears. But all 3 vanished from sensors in the same second. Chancellor Varn stood frozen as the reports flooded in. We lost contact with Outpost Sigma, Command Base 41, and Relay Nexus Delta. A voice said through his comlink rescue teams. Sent, no return. He knew what it meant. They were here. But it wasn't like before. This time, the humans didn't arrive with warnings. They didn't speak, didn't threaten, didn't demand. They simply erased. Across the galaxy, strange black clouds appeared in the sky. Sometimes above cities, sometimes over lonely mining worlds. They hung like silent watchers, swirling with lightless energy. Ships that approached them vanished, or returned hollow empty, cold, their crews missing. People began calling it the storm that has no name. No one knew what it was, only that where it passed, silence followed. Captain Drawl sat in the war room of the Shiverwind, eyes heavy. He had tried warning the council. He had told them humanity would not remain quiet forever, but they didn't listen. Now the storm had come, and no weapon could stop it. Vela entered. With a new report, Captain, we've received a coded transmission, she said. It's from the humans. Drawl turned quickly. Play it. The message was short. Only one sentence. We do not conquer. We cleanse. The words echoed. Like thunder, not a threat, but a declaration. Vela looked shaken. Captain, why aren't they talking to us? Why don't they ask for peace? Drawl sighed. Because they already offered peace, he said. Years ago, and the galaxy spit on it. The council panicked. They began building new weapons, AI-guided fleets, plasma destroyers, shielded fortresses, but nothing worked. Every time a fleet launched toward one of the black storms, it disappeared. Worse, civilian colonies that had nothing to do with the old war were being visited, not destroyed, but watched. A single Terran ship would appear in the sky, wait for one day, then vanish. It left behind messages carved in stone or burned into trees. We remember. We forgive nothing. History will be rewritten. One council world tried to fight back. The planet of Variant 3, home to a proud warrior species. They fired on a black Terran cruiser, using their strongest weapons, but When the smoke cleared, the cruiser had not moved, not even a scratch. Then came the response. Not a battle, not a speech, just a silent signal that disabled every electronic system on Variant 3 for 5 hours. Power, water, food storage, medical systems all dead when it ended. One word was written in the sky, glowing with eerie blue fire. Mercy. After that, no one fired again, not out of respect, but out of fear. The galaxy started to change. Trade routes shifted away from human-controlled sectors. Systems began erasing Earth from their star maps. People whispered in fear, but never said the name aloud. Even children learned not to ask. They became a myth again, but this time a terrifying one. Not extinct, not gone, just hiding in plain sight. And every time someone asked who they were, the answer came quietly. They're the storm that has no name. They are what happens when history forgets the cost of betrayal. Drawl sat alone in the observation deck of his ship. He looked out at the stars and felt something heavy in his chest. He didn't fear the humans, not like the Council did. He feared what they had been forced to become. Sarah Niles had warned him. They didn't want thrones or applause. They wanted to be left alone. But when that was denied, they created something stronger than war. They created silence. Vela joined him quietly. "Captain," she said, "there's been another sighting, another storm." Drawl nodded slowly. "Where this time?" "On Elistar," she replied, "the site of the old peace conference." Of course, they were not erasing randomly. They were choosing symbols, locations where lies had been spoken, where trust was broken. Drawl stood, his voice steady. "There? Not trying to destroy the galaxy," he said. "They're teaching it. And the lesson," he whispered, "is that memory has a price." The stars were no longer silent. They whispered now. Not through sound, but through fear. And every whisper carried one name: humanity. But no one dared speak it aloud. Not in the council, not in schools, not even in private. To say human was to invite a shadow. To remember them was to feel a cold wind pass through the room, but forgetting them, that was worse. Because they were the ones who never forgot. On the outer rim, a small moon colony reported something strange. A child had drawn a picture of a woman in black armor standing beneath a glowing sky. The child had never seen a human before, never read about the war. When asked where she saw the figure, the child only said, "She comes in my dreams. She says we must remember." At the same time, across dozens of systems, old satellites turned back on, not military satellites, but ones used for memory storage histories, images, voices. Each one replayed old Terran broadcasts, speeches, songs, cries of peace. They did not attack or threaten. They simply reminded. Captain Drawl stood before the council again. This time, not as a soldier, not even as a witness. He stood as a messenger. Behind him was a hologram of Sarah Niles. Captured during their last meeting, she said only this: "We are not monsters. We are the mirror you refuse to face." The chamber was silent. Even Chancellor Varn did not speak, because by now, everyone knew the war had ended long ago, but the truth was still coming. And the humans were carrying it. They don't want revenge, Drawl said quietly. They want us to feel what they felt, not through blood, but through memory. The council voted to release the truth at last. Old war records were opened. People across the galaxy read what had been hidden. How humanity was pushed into war. How they were betrayed, outnumbered, and still never gave up. How, in the end, they left not because they were weak, but because they were done. Public response was massive. Some mourned, some apologized, others still feared. But one feeling rose above all respect. On a quiet world named Tessin 5, a statue was built. It showed a Terran soldier kneeling, holding a burned flag. Below it were words in 23 languages. We remember them not for their war, but for the silence they gave us after. Sarah Niles returned one final time. She met withdrawal, not in a warship, but on neutral ground, a small garden on a peaceful moon. She wore no armor, just a simple cloak. Her eyes still glowed faint blue, but her voice was warm. You did what the council never could. She told him, you listened. Drawl bowed slightly. You gave us the chance, he replied. We were too afraid to take it. Sarah looked to the stars. So many still fear us, she said. Some think we will conquer, others believe. We are no longer alive. Drawl nodded. They see your silence as danger. Sarah smiled, but it was sad. Silence can be peace, she said. Or it can be the weight of things too painful to speak. She handed him a small crystal drive. Everything we have recorded, she said, our pain, our songs, our memories, give it to the galaxy. Let them choose to listen. Drawl took it with both hands, and in that moment, he knew this was not a gift. It was a test, a final chance to choose memory over myth, truth over fear. Back on the Shiverwind, he played the first file. It was a child's voice, singing. A Terran lullaby, soft, gentle, and filled with hope. The kind of sound that could melt steel hearts. And as it played, Drawl looked out into space and whispered, We hear you. From that day forward, no more Terran ships appeared. No more black storms. No more vanishing fleets. Only stillness and the slow return of peace. But the galaxy had changed. Maps once again included Earth. Schools taught real history. And on some nights, if you stood in the dark and listened closely, you could still hear it. The voice of a child, the whisper of a soldier, the hum of a forgotten fleet, all saying the same thing. We are still here. We are always watching. And we will never forget, and neither would the stars.